Hey everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about something that I know is on a lot of your minds, learning English. And more specifically, we're going to talk about those tricky parts, those hurdles, those moments when you just feel like, this is too hard. If you've ever felt that way, trust me, you are definitely not alone. Tired of English learning hurdles? My channel is designed to help you conquer them. Let's be honest, learning any new language can be a bit of a roller coaster, right? Some days you feel like you're flying, making amazing progress, and other days you might feel like you've hit a wall. And English, with all its quirks and nuances, can certainly present its fair share of challenges. We understand your pain. I've talked to so many English learners over the years, and I hear a lot of the same frustrations cropping up again and again. Maybe some of these sound familiar to you. One of the biggest ones is what I call silent English. This is when you actually know quite a bit of English, you can read it. Maybe you understand it when you hear it, but when it comes time to actually speak, your mind goes blank. The words just don't seem to come out. You feel shy or worried about making mistakes, so you just stay quiet. It's like all that English is trapped inside you. This is super common, and it's a really frustrating place to be. You want to communicate, you want to share your ideas, but that fear of speaking holds you back. Then there's the classic problem of vocabulary. Oh, vocabulary. You spend hours learning new words. Maybe you make flashcards, you use apps, you write them down 100 times. And for a little while, you remember them. But then, a week later, when you try to use that perfect word you learned, it's gone. Poof, vanished from your brain. It feels like your vocabulary isn't growing, no matter how much effort you put in. You might think, what's the point of learning new words if I just forget them? This can make you feel like you're not making any real progress. Another tough one is listening. You might be doing okay in your English class, or when you're listening to your teacher who speaks slowly and clearly. But then you try to watch a movie in English, or listen to a song, or overhear a conversation between native speakers. Suddenly, it's like they're speaking a completely different language. They talk so fast, the words all seem to blend together, and you can only catch a word here and there. It's easy to feel lost and think, I'll never be able to understand native speakers. And let's not forget grammar. For some people, grammar is like a giant puzzle with a million tiny pieces, and none of them seem to fit together properly. You learn a rule, and then you find out there are 10 exceptions to that rule. You try to write an email or a short paragraph, and you're constantly worrying. Is this the right tense? Did I use the correct preposition? Is this sentence even a real sentence? It can make writing feel like a chore, and you might be afraid to write much at all because you're worried about all the mistakes you'll make. With all these challenges, it's no wonder that sometimes our motivation can take a nosedive. Maybe you started learning English with a lot of excitement and energy. You had big goals. But after a few weeks or months of struggling with these difficulties, that initial enthusiasm can start to fade. It's easy to think, maybe English just isn't for me, or I'm not good at languages. And when that happens, it's very tempting to just give up or to stop putting in as much effort. You might find yourself making excuses like I'm too busy today or I'll study tomorrow. Finally, sometimes the problem isn't just the language itself, but trying to find the right way to learn. There are so many books, so many websites, so many apps, so many different teachers and methods out there. It can be overwhelming. You might try one thing for a while, then switch to something else, then something else again, never really feeling like you've found a system that works for you. You might wonder, am I using the best resources? Is there a secret trick I'm missing? This search for the perfect method can actually stop you from making progress with any method. If any of this sounds like your experience, please know this: you are not alone. These are incredibly common challenges that almost every single language learner faces at some point. It's not because you're bad at English or not smart enough. It's just part of the process. The important thing is to acknowledge these difficulties, to understand that they are normal, and then to find ways to work through them. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Mindset building. Difficulties are paper tigers. So, we've talked about some of the common hurdles. Now, let's talk about something that's just as important as any grammar rule or vocabulary list: your mindset. How you think about learning English can make a huge difference. Often, the difficulties we face can feel like huge, scary monsters. But sometimes, if we look closely, we find they're more like paper tigers. They look intimidating, but we have the power to overcome them. Why do we get so anxious about learning English sometimes? Well, a big reason is the fear of making mistakes. Nobody likes to feel foolish, right? We worry that if we say something wrong, people will laugh at us or think we're not intelligent. This fear can be really paralyzing. Another thing is that we often want results fast. We live in a world of instant gratification, and we want to be fluent in English like yesterday. When progress feels slow, it's easy to get discouraged. And sometimes, we just don't get enough positive feedback. If you're always focusing on what you can't do, it's hard to see how far you've actually come. But here's the good news. We can change how we think. We can build a stronger, more positive mindset. First off, let's talk about mistakes. I want you to try and think about mistakes in a new way. Mistakes are not your enemy, they are your teachers. Seriously, every time you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn something new. If you mispronounce a word and someone corrects you, great, now you know the correct way. If you use the wrong grammar in a sentence and you realize it or someone points it out, fantastic. That's a grammar point you're more likely to remember next time. So, try to accept that making mistakes is a natural and essential part of learning. Don't aim for perfection from day one because that's impossible. Aim for progress. Think of it like this: a baby learning to walk falls down hundreds of times. Does the baby give up? No, It gets back up and tries again. Be like that baby. Next, let's tackle that feeling of wanting results too quickly. It's great to have big goals, like being fluent in English. But big goals can also feel very far away and overwhelming. So, what's the solution? Break it down. Set small, achievable goals for yourself. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent this year, maybe say, this week, I want to learn 10 new vocabulary words related to food and use them in a sentence. Or, this month, I want to practice speaking English for 15 minutes, 3 times a week. When you set these smaller goals and you achieve them, you get a little burst of success. It's like leveling up in a video game. Each small win builds your confidence and keeps you motivated. Celebrate those small victories. Did you understand a song lyric you didn't understand before? Awesome! Did you have a short conversation in English, even if it wasn't perfect? Amazing! Acknowledge your progress. Another powerful tool is positive self-talk. What's that little voice inside your head saying? Is it saying, you're terrible at this, or you'll never get it? If it is, it's time to change the script. When you catch yourself thinking negatively, try to replace those thoughts with more positive and realistic ones. Instead of I'm so bad at grammar, try grammar is challenging, but I'm learning it step by step. Instead of I'll never be able to speak fluently, try every time I practice speaking, I get a little bit better. It might feel a bit silly at first, but actively choosing to speak kindly and encouragingly to yourself can have a huge impact on your motivation and your belief in your own abilities. Tell yourself, I can do this, I am capable, I am making progress. Because it's true, there are also some simple psychological tricks you can use when you're feeling overwhelmed or scared. For example, if you're nervous about speaking, try practicing by yourself first. Talk to your reflection in the mirror or record yourself on your phone. This way, you can get used to hearing yourself speak English without any pressure. Another trick is visualization. Before you have to do something in English that makes you nervous, like giving a short presentation or talking to a native speaker, close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself doing it successfully. Imagine yourself feeling calm, confident, and speaking clearly. This can actually help reduce your anxiety when the real moment comes. And remember to breathe. If you're feeling stressed, take a few slow, deep breaths. It can really help to calm your nerves. Building a strong mindset is an ongoing process. It's about being patient with yourself, being kind to yourself, and celebrating your efforts as much as your achievements. When you start to see difficulties not as scary monsters, but as opportunities to grow, your whole learning journey can change for the better. The way out, general learning strategies. Okay, so we've worked on our mindset. We're feeling a bit more positive and ready to tackle these challenges. Now, let's get into some practical strategies, some general tips and tricks that can help you overcome those common hurdles in English learning. These aren't magic secrets, but they are tried and tested approaches that can make a real difference. First up, Let's talk about input. Input is anything you read or listened to in English. It's the fuel for your language learning engine. Without good input, it's very hard to improve. But not all input is created equal. One of the most important things is to choose materials that are at the right level for you. If you try to read a super complicated academic article when you're just starting out, you're going to get frustrated very quickly. Similarly, if you're an intermediate learner and you're only reading very simple children's stories, you might not be challenging yourself enough. You want to find materials that are what we call comprehensible input. This means you should be able to understand most of it, maybe 70 to 80%, but there are still some new words or phrases that you can learn from the context. Think of it like stretching. You want to stretch a little bit beyond your comfort zone, but not so much that you hurt yourself. So, look for graded readers or articles and podcasts specifically designed for English learners at your level. When it comes to input, there are two main ways to approach it: intensive and extensive. Intensive reading or listening is when you focus really deeply on a short piece of text or audio. You might read a paragraph several times, look up every word you don't know, analyze the grammar, and really try to understand every single detail. This is great for learning new vocabulary and grammar rules. Extensive reading or listening, on the other hand, is when you consume a lot of material for general understanding and enjoyment. You might read a whole book or listen to a long podcast without stopping to look up every single word. The goal here is to get used to the flow of the language and to pick up new things more naturally, just like how you learned your first language. Both intensive and extensive approaches are important, so try to find a balance. Maybe you do some intensive study of a short news article, and then you relax by watching an English TV show with subtitles for extensive listening. Now, let's move on to output. Output is when you produce language, when you speak or write in English. Input is essential, but if you only ever take English in and never try to use it, it's going to be very hard to become fluent. Output is where you really start to activate all that knowledge you've been storing up. One of the biggest challenges for output, as we talked about, is speaking. So, how can you create more opportunities to speak? If you have access to native speakers or other learners, that's fantastic. Look for language exchange partners, join conversation clubs, or take classes where you get to speak. But even if you don't have those opportunities, you can still practice. You can try shadowing. This is when you listen to a short piece of audio, maybe a sentence or two from a podcast, and you try to repeat it exactly as you hear it, mimicking the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. It's a great way to improve your accent and fluency. You can also just talk to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing, what you're thinking, or what you see around you. It might feel a bit strange at first, but it's a pressure-free way to practice forming sentences. And don't forget, even just reading out loud can help your mouth get used to making English sounds. When it comes to writing, a good way to start is by imitating. Find short texts that you like, maybe a blog post, a product review, or a simple story, and try to write something similar, using some of the same sentence structures or vocabulary, but changing the topic to something about your own life. You can also start small. You don't have to write a long essay right away. Try keeping a simple diary in English. Just write a few sentences each day about what you did or how you felt. Or write short comments on social media posts in English. As you get more confident, you can gradually try to write longer and more complex things. The key is to practice regularly. Next, let's talk about consistency. This is perhaps one of the most important and sometimes one of the hardest parts of learning English. It's much better to study for 15 to 30 minutes every day than to study for 3 hours once a week. Why? Because language learning is like building a muscle. You need regular exercise to make it strong. When you're consistent, you keep the information fresh in your mind and you build momentum. So, how can you be more consistent? The first step is to make a realistic study plan. Don't try to cram too much in, or you'll burn out. Look at your schedule and find small pockets of time that you can dedicate to English. Maybe it's 20 minutes on your commute, or 15 minutes before bed, or half an hour during your lunch break. Write it down in your calendar, just like any other important appointment. And try to stick to it as much as possible. Of course, life happens, and you might miss a day here or there. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just get back on track the next day. And remember to use those little bits of dead time or fragmented time that we all have. Waiting for the bus, review some vocabulary on an app, doing chores around the house, listen to an English podcast. Even 5 or 10 minutes of focused study can add up over time. The idea is to make English a regular part of your life, not just something you do occasionally when you feel like it. Finally, let's touch on feedback. Feedback is like a mirror. It helps you see what you're doing well and where you need to improve. Without feedback, you might keep making the same mistakes over and over again without even realizing it. So, how can you get feedback? If you have a teacher, that's a great source. Ask them specific questions about your speaking or writing. If you have a language exchange partner, you can agree to correct each other's mistakes. There are also online communities and forums where you can post your writing and ask for feedback from other learners or native speakers. When you receive feedback, try to see it as a gift, even if it's pointing out your errors. Don't get defensive. Instead, try to understand the correction and learn from it. And it's also good to ask for positive feedback. Ask people what you're doing well. This can be a great motivator. You can also learn to give yourself feedback. Record yourself speaking and listen back. You'll often be surprised by what you notice. Or, when you're writing, try to edit your own work after a short break. You might catch some of your own mistakes. These are just some general strategies, of course. The most important thing is to find what works for you. Experiment with different techniques, be patient with yourself, and keep going. Every little bit of effort you put in is a step closer to your goal. Learning English is a journey, not a race. There will be ups and downs, easy parts and challenging parts. But with the right mindset and some effective strategies, you absolutely can overcome those hurdles and make real progress. Remember why you started learning English in the first place. Keep that goal in mind and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. And speaking of help, that's what I'm all about here. I truly believe that everyone can learn English, and I want to help make that journey a little bit smoother and a lot more enjoyable for you. This brings me to my channel, Elephant English. My core goal with Elephant English is to be your friendly guide, your minesweeper, to help you clear away those tricky obstacles, and your navigator to help you find the best path forward on your English learning adventure. Here at Elephant English, we focus on breaking down complex topics into easy-to-understand pieces. We have different series to help you, like our Pain Point Sniper videos, where we take a close look at specific difficulties, like tricky pronunciation, confusing grammar points, or how to improve your listening skills, and give you clear, practical ways to tackle them. We also have our methodology workshop, where we dive into effective learning methods, memory techniques, and even time management strategies to help you learn smarter, not just harder. Because we know practice is key, our practical drill ground offers you chances to use your English in real-life contexts, maybe through looking at how English is used in movies or discussing everyday situations. And because motivation and a positive attitude are so important, we have our Soul Fuel Station segments, where we share learning tips, inspiring stories, and create a supportive space for all of us. My promise to you is that if you join us at Elephant English, you'll get clear guidance, build the confidence to overcome those learning barriers, and see real, noticeable progress. I want to help you discover that learning English doesn't have to be a frustrating struggle. It can actually be a really rewarding and fun experience. So, if you're tired of those hurdles and ready to conquer them, I invite you to check out Elephant English. Let's learn and grow together.